sit and question every single movement one has made isn't easy. To feel lonely is uncomfortable. Being replaced breaks you. No one enjoys having to sit in these feelings constantly. Yet, the art world is attracted to creating these pieces over and over again. Great pieces, lonely, gigantic pieces, making you feel insignificant, small, invisible. Attracted to represent forgotten worlds, lonely worlds, worlds frozen in time, carried out by few people, sometimes one protagonist, sometimes no one. Why? Why are we attracted to create art that makes us feel this way? Why does the human being have the necessity to question his lifestyle? Why is it so interested in representing these feelings? Isn't it important to use art to represent depressive, lonely, and impossible worlds? Aristotle Roufanis is a Greek photographer born in Athens in 1983 and currently lives and works in London. Since 2016, Aristotle has created high-definition images of urban landscapes that represent the loneliness of each city and its inhabitants. Blue worlds, small flickers of light, few stories to be told, but details telling you everything you need to know. Gigantic views, unreal views. Unreal. That's the important thing. These worlds are impossible. These cities have never been this dark. There has never been 5 or 6 people in a city of millions. This world never existed physically, but all these people could feel that they reside here. A world where they are alone, with grey and shallow views, with no story to be told or known. These impossible worlds detail a great sorrow, exclusion, and solitude that these people bear with. There's a genre of art in general internet culture that is known as liminal spaces. These pieces tend to be compiled under the titles strangely familiar places with unnerving music, or alterations of the title structure. It has been agreed that this type of images tend to unleash a certain type of nostalgia, familiarity, uncertainty, or discomfort in the user that sees them. Some claiming that they've been in these places before, some confirming that the images give them goosebumps. The most logical explanation to this phenomenon is that the human brain looks for a connection with a memory the user has, detecting similar patterns to declare that the image is familiar, with this being either a defense pattern, giving the user goosebumps, or recognizing the environment as a safe space, unleashing nostalgia or anemoia. But as interesting as this phenomenon is, the concept and story behind these images is the most important part. Liminal spaces are made up of transition spaces between stories. A house becomes a hollow house once the family that used to live there moves out. A mall becomes an abandoned mall once it has been decided to tear it down. There are even places that stay liminal spaces throughout all of their existence. Transition spaces are the last frontier that memories and stories have to pass through before being replaced by new stories and memories, with liminal spaces being the representation of this last frontier, a representation of a story before it's replaced. And then there's Stanley.
This is the story of a man named Stanley. Stanley worked for a company in a big building where he was employee number 427. Employee number 427's job was simple. He sat at his desk in room 427 and he pushed buttons on a keyboard. Orders came to him through a monitor on his desk, telling him what buttons to push, how long to push them, and in what order. This is what employee 427 did every day of every month of every year. And although others might have considered it soul-rending, Stanley relished every moment that the orders came in, as though he had been made exactly for this job. And Stanley was happy.
The Stanley Parable is a video game developed by Galactic Cafe in 2013 and revitalized in 2020 with its Ultra Deluxe edition. A first-person narrative that places you in the shoes of Stanley, with each choice you make affecting fundamentally the story's progress.
All of his co-workers were gone. What could it mean? Stanley decided to go to the meeting room. Perhaps he had simply missed a memo.
The Stanley Parable presents the absolute solution to an impossible world and an unbearable reality. The game currently has 43 different endings, with 3 of them greatly standing out from the rest, thanks to what they reveal of the game's world nature and how they connect with each other to tell a consistent story. These endings are the death of a man named Stanley, the good ending, and the crazy ending. In the death of a man named Stanley, it is revealed that the narrator is an omnipotent version of the main character, allowing the narrator to alter the story as he pleases, and the Stanley Parable's true nature is revealed.
But in his mind, he can go on fantastic adventures. From behind his desk, Stanley dreamed of wild expeditions into the unknown, and each day that he returned to work was a reminder that none of it would ever happen to him. As he wandered through this fantasy world, he began to fill it with many possible paths and destinations. Down one path lay an enormous round room with monitors and mind controls. And down another was a yellow line that weaved in many directions. And down another was a game with a baby. And he called it the Stanley Parable.
The Stanley Parable is a tool to help the narrator avoid a reality he can't accept. He ruined his life and made it a hollow existence, which he doesn't want to be responsible for, even though he's aware that he's the only one who could change the course of his story. During the good ending, the narrator tells the story in which Stanley drops all his responsibilities and discovers that his whole life has been in the hands of a third party. All his decisions, the decisions that made him unhappy, were never chosen by him. His lifestyle isn't his fault.
This mind control facility, it was too horrible to believe. It couldn't be true. Had Stanley really been under someone's control all this time? Was this the only reason he was happy with his boring job? That his emotions had been manipulated to accept it blindly?
During the crazy ending, the game gives the most frightening, crazy, and realistic ending of them all, making it the definitive ending to Stanley's story, and consequently, the narrator's as well.
Stars just a moment ago? How else would the voice explain all that? This voice was a part of himself too. Surely, if he could just... He would prove it. He would prove that he was in control, that this was a dream. So he closed his eyes gently, and he invited himself to wake up. He felt the cool weight of the blanket on his skin, the press of the mattress on his back, the fresh air of a world outside this one. Let me wake up, he thought to himself. I'm through with this dream. I wish it to be over. Let me go back to my job. Let me continue pushing the buttons. Please, it's all I want. I want my apartment, and my wife, and my job. All I want is my life exactly the way it's always been. My life is normal. I am normal. Everything will be fine. I am okay.
Using the Stanley Parable as a tool to avoid his reality so many times ends up driving Stanley crazy.
Stanley began screaming. Please, someone, wake me up. My name is Stanley. I have a boss. I have an office. I am real. Please, just someone tell me I am real. I must be real. I must be. Can anyone hear my voice? Who am I? Who am I? And everything went black.
So, is that it? The story ends in blackness?
Blackness and a rising chill of uncertainty. Was it over? Yes! He had won! He had defeated the machine, unshackled himself from someone else's command. Freedom was mere moments away. And yet, even as the immense door slowly opened, Stanley reflected on how many puzzles still lay unsolved. Where had his co-workers gone? How had he been freed from the machine's grasp? What other mysteries did this strange building hold? But as sunlight streamed into the chamber, he realized none of this mattered to him, for it was not knowledge or even power that he had been seeking, but happiness. Perhaps his goal had not been to understand, but to let go. No longer would anyone tell him where to go, what to do, or how to feel. Whatever life he lives, it will be his. And that was all he needed to know. It was perhaps the only thing worth knowing. Stanley stepped through the open door. Stanley felt the cool breeze upon his skin, the feeling of liberation, the immense possibility of the new path before him. This was exactly the way, right now, that things were meant to happen. And Stanley was happy.
All these pieces portray something in common. The Stanley Parable portrays the weight of one's choices. The pictures taken by Aristotle Roufanis portray an impossible and lonely world. Liminal spaces portray a memory at the edge of replacement. And by comparing all these pieces, one to one, they tell the same story. Experienced by different characters, sometimes even experienced by the environment. Stories where the main character sits in an unbearable reality, where they are unsatisfied, alone, left behind, almost forgotten, replaced, at the edge of insanity, dead, non-existent in the timeline, with no control over their future. Realistically, who would enjoy living in a lonely world? Who would like to be replaced? Who would want to bear with their decisions? With that in mind, is it important for art to represent this depressing, desolate, impossible world, if these are the realities we are looking to avoid? Unlike Stanley, we are not a variant of an omnipotent narrator, nor are we under the control of a mind control facility. We don't exist in a hollow world as the one the people in Aristotle Roufanis pictures or Edward Hopper paintings do. We won't be eventually forgotten to tell new stories. We've never done this before. Any choice we make could drive us mad. Any room could drop us in an impossible world. At any given moment, our reality could turn into an unbearable reality. If it wasn't because of this type of pieces, for art's constant necessity to recreate and represent depressive, lonesome, impossible worlds, realities we want to escape from, we could never truly know the true value of our reality and existence.